Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I'm an emergency services dispatcher, and I've been working the midnight run for the last year and a half. I swear that the station I work at is haunted. I have a camera system that shows me the ambulance bay, so I can close the garage doors after units leave or make sure no one is out there that shouldn't be. But every now and again it will glitch out and I will see movement, a quick blur across the bay, or down the staircase from the storage area upstairs, or across the cameras themselves. Sometimes the camera feed will just cut out, and I'll get the no signal across my screens, and then they'll come back up. But every time they come back up, just after they do, I swear that I see a guy standing dead center of the ambulance bay. Blurry features, but staring up at the cameras. Every single time. I've also taken quite a few extremely weird 911 calls, if anyone wants me to tell those stories. So the thing I love and hate most about my job is that I'm the only dispatcher in my office. The police and sheriff dispatchers are housed in separate buildings. Most of the calls I take are called in either from nursing homes or transferred over from the police department, since they do the initial pickup when someone dials 911. But every now and again someone will dial my direct line, typically when they don't want the police or fire department to show up with the ambulance. Those calls are always the weirdest. Be me, 3 a.m., everyone in the station is asleep except me. Direct line rings. Name of company, what's your emergency? Weird static on the other end of the line, and then a tiny, quiet female voice says,
I can't do it anymore.
Can't do it anymore, miss. Could you please speak up? What's your address? Quiet sobbing. Miss.
I don't want to live anymore.
Miss, I'm sorry you feel that way. Do you want to talk about this? Can you tell me where you are? Line goes dead. Call the police department and ask if they have the phone number they called from in their system and if they have a location for the number. They give me the address, say they're sending an officer out. I wake up an EMS crew and send them to the address. EMS crew calls me from the scene, weird static on their phone as they're talking. House is and has been abandoned for years. No one there. Number that the call came from was disconnected 2 years ago and never reactivated per the phone company after police department starts digging into this. House belonged to a 21-year-old girl who shot herself. The house was willed to her from her parents who died in a car accident. Another 911 call, because I'm off tonight and bored at home. Name of company, what's your emergency? Beeping noise on the line, like a numbers station or something. Hello. Say hello 2 or 3 more times, no answer, just continual beeping. Hang up, about to call PD to get a trace on the number. When the number calls back, answer the same way I always do.
You need to help me, I need paramedics now.
Sir, can I have your address please? What's going on today that you need EMS? Beeping. Sir, please answer me. Beeping, heavy breathing.
Send me help.
Line goes dead. I pull the number up in my system to see if it's a patient we've had before while I'm calling the police department. It's an address we've been to before, old man who lives alone, it's out of the city and in the county somewhere. Call sheriff. Ask them to send a deputy. Wake up a crew and send them, tell them the story and the medic says,
I don't like the sound of this.
They all get on scene. 15 minutes after that I try and raise my crew on the radio. They answer, saying that it's a signal 43, dead on arrival, please call the coroner. We'll give you a public service. They're going to call me on the phone rather than tie up the radio.
Anon, this guy has been dead at least a day. And he has no family. Do you know who the call came from? Sheriff asked for more deputies because he doesn't see signs of entry and no one lives with this guy.
I have no idea who made the call. Did you guys find out what the beeping noise was?
Yeah, the beeping noise was from his medic alert button. Did the alarm company maybe call you?
I called the alarm company associated with that address. They never got an alarm activation signal from the house. Which is weird because they had gotten an activation 2 days before this because he accidentally bumped the button. Some of the calls start out spoopy and end up being nothing, though. The really creepy, scary ones are few and far between generally. It makes me sad I'm not working tonight, because Halloween is always amazing for both creepy and hilarious calls. Police department dispatch calls me.
Hey, we need an ambulance to 123 Awesome Street. I've got officers on scene with a male in his 30s who is threatening to end his life. He is armed, so wait for the officers to clear the crew to enter. Also, he's threatening to overdose.
Okay. JPG. Wake up the crew, fill them in on the details. Halfway to the scene, Police Department Dispatch jumps on my radio freak and tells the crew that they're clear to approach. Detect slight giggling from the police dispatcher when she tells them this. Cops are laughing their asses off when they get on scene. I was armed with a ridiculous toy cap gun that doesn't even fire projectiles of any kind. When they pointed that out to him, he screamed that he'd set his hair on fire with it. The pills he was set to OD on were like 5 Tylenol. Great job on your hero, bro. I laughed so hard when the crew came back and told me the story, since it started out as a very tense, serious call. Another actually scary 911 call. Name of company, what's your emergency?
I need help for my mommy.
Okay, what is your address?
555 Skeleton Street.
What's wrong with your mommy?
She won't wake up. I keep trying, but she won't wake up.
Okay, where is she right now?
On the floor in the kitchen. She's really cold, so I covered her up with a blanket.
Okay, what's your name?
Mike, I'm 5.
Okay, Mike, can you tell me if she's breathing?
How do I tell?
Well, is her chest moving up and down? Can you feel the air coming out of her nose?
There's some air coming out. She's not breathing a lot though.
What do you mean not a lot?
Well, I'm breathing lots of times, but she's only breathing once in a while.
Send crew out, notify police department for a cop. Okay, stay on the phone with me until they get their mic, and tell me if she stops breathing or if something happens. Okay?
Okay, but I can't stay on the phone long. I won't.
Muffled sounds. They're on the way, Mike. Don't worry, we'll help her the best that we can, okay?
Okay, I hear the sirens coming. That must be them.
Yes, they're really close. Can you let them in the door when they get there?
I can go unlock it.
He hangs up the phone. Crew comes back and tells me that there was no kid in the house. Woman had overdosed on heroin, would have died on the floor had the call not been made. She had a kid once. He died at 5 in a house fire at his biological dad's house. Has no other kids. I play the call back for the crew and the cops since they came over to find out what the hell was going on with that call. Everyone nopes out of the dispatch office, goosebumps everywhere.
I'm a 911 operator and I get some funny stuff a lot of the time, a few serious ones every week. Like my baby daddy is being aggressive, and maybe a really serious one like once every couple of months. But there's also the freaky shit, which almost never happens, but there's been cases. I normally get recordings of mine whenever I feel like it'll be funny, scary, whatever. But this one happened to a coworker of mine. She got a call, nothing out of the ordinary. Was asking for address, name, etc., still normal. The lady on the other end had locked herself in her bedroom because she saw a shadow moving around in her yard. At one point she got really quiet and wouldn't respond. Out of nowhere she comes back and says there was a face in the window and she's breathing very heavily. Constantly asks my coworker to tell the police to hurry up, she keeps saying she's going to die. A sudden, loud thud can be heard on the phone and the lady screams. Who or whatever was outside just slammed into the side of the house loud enough to be heard on the phone. At this point about 10 minutes has passed and 2 gunshots are heard, assumed to be the police showing up and shooting the person. The lady says the police are here, but doesn't listen to my coworker to stay in her room until she confirms it. About 20 seconds later there's another gunshot followed by a female grunt, then a thud and loud static, like a phone being dropped. Turns out the police hadn't shown up yet. The person shot for some reason. She opened the door and got shot. The police showed up moments later and found no one and no evidence.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
911 operator here. About the worst I have was an open line call where I could hear a lady being actively beaten and choked by her boyfriend. And she was on a cell phone in an apartment complex, so I couldn't find her exact location. We did end up finding her eventually though. She was okay, but it was very uncomfortable to hear and not be able to do anything else but listen. Also it was almost super creepy, but a call came over for dispatch of human flesh and scalp in a paint can. Like every officer in the damn city came out to look. It was old, dried up latex paint. Still not sure how you screw up that badly. I dunno much else.
So, it's about 3:30 a.m., it's a Tuesday, pretty slow. Basically weekday nights consist of junkies and drunks who are freaking out. And all we do is tell them to go to psych and get some pills to sleep on and a bed for the night. The worst things being the occasional beaten wife or trucker who fell asleep at the wheel. In the middle of my 100th cup of coffee that shift, I get a call in. It's silent at first, but I can hear that the line is open. You know, that slight buzzing sound when the line's a bit bad. The caller ID ain't help since it's a prepaid cell. So I try to make contact for a while, but then I hear sounds in the background. At first there are sounds of a muffled voice, male from the sound of it. I then hear some rasping sounds, like moving furniture over wooden floors. Since I'm not making contact, but the line's open, I order a general trace. Basically just a cell tower location. The silence returns until shit starts freaking me out. Someone picks up the phone, and I hear a thud as it is dropped once more. There is now audible breathing, like a struma patient. A short while later, I start to hear guttural sounds, like gurgling wetness. This continues on for a good 2 or 3 minutes. After that, only the breathing remains and the line cuts out shortly after. We didn't dispatch anyone to look into this. There was no info and the trace only revealed a cell tower location. However, a few weeks after this, a murder site was discovered within the area covered by that tower. Someone had broken into an old army storage house, abandoned and boarded up. I haven't read the police reports, of course, but the information states that a young woman was murdered. The body had been dismembered, and the official statements called it ritualistic.
I'm not a 911 operator, but I'm an EMS dispatcher for nursing homes. I work the night shift from 20 to 8 a.m. 2 o'clock. Foreign nurse calls me in a panic, telling me to send EMS now. No details. Usually give me vitals, but she said, no needed. Send now. Sounds like a 911 call, but whatever. Send them to the facility. They don't radio back when they're transporting to ER like they should. Wait an hour. Must be bad. Finally get something. Unit 6 on scene. But hear a woman screaming/moaning in the background. They complete the call and come back to the station. Their uniforms are covered in blood. They didn't pack the change of clothes for that call. Tell me that the patient had fallen and broke her skull, cracked it enough for brain matter to show. She also broke her hip, ribs, and was bleeding from the mouth the whole way. Kept yelling out, my father did this, my father did this. She is 90 years old. I will never send my mom to a nursing home.
Okay. Our 911 center is part of the city's emergency management building, which just happens to be a nuclear shelter from the 60s. Anyway, I was working there as temp staff, doing clerical work for the 911 center. Shitty job, didn't pay great, and pretty damn soul-crushing because I was transcribing the recorded 911 calls to text. This is before the software did it automatically. Some of them were just absolutely brutal. Especially the ones where a kid is calling and begging for help because mommy or daddy is hurting the other parent, or one of their siblings. Domestic violence was by and large the most common call, but a few were break-ins or drug deals gone bad, and I had to listen to each recording from start to finish to transcribe it. I am glad I am gone from there. So, it's 2001, and I am working this job I dislike. It's mid-fall, probably early October. And it's been hotter than hell, you'd think it was summer still. Anyway, by early morning, we had been watching the weather reports and we were going to be in for one hell of a pounding that afternoon. They were predicting tornadoes, hail, high winds, torrential rain, the works. Days like this. The 911 center gets busy as hell, and honestly, I was glad to be working 40 or 50 hours underground that day on a volunteer double shift for the money. So, I was busy listening to a call, a domestic between brothers. I remember it clearly, because of what happened in the middle of the transcription. I heard a commotion out in the call center. I was off in an office where it was quieter so I could hear the playbacks. I get up to see what's wrong. Apparently, all the lines have gone dead due to the storm, they surmise. A lot of calls were cut off in mid-call. So, they fired up the radios and started dispatching from radio with what information they had. It was maybe 1:15 p.m. by this time. And the busiest time was coming up, in the midst of clearing all the call information they had on screen. A single phone line chimes in. Sandra, the relatively newest operator, is a little surprised by it, because it has been basically dead for almost 45 minutes by this time. She plugs in her headset and answers the call. This is 911. What's your emergency is the usual response given. However, She stops just after 911. She quickly calls over Jonathan, the floor supervisor at the time, and tells him to listen in. And she takes off her headset. A big no-no. She asks him before he starts listening if she can excuse herself. She is looking pretty shaken at this point. He waves her off and cues up with once again starting off with "this is" before stopping. Then frantically, he starts saying hello. Hello, can you come to the phone? Hello. After a minute or so, he suddenly reaches down and hits the speaker button so the entire office could hear what he and Sandra just heard. It was screaming. Nothing but screams. It sounded like mid-teens screaming. And not just one or two, but a whole chorus of them. This actually goes on for about another 30 or 45 seconds, long enough for all of us to really register what was going on. The line suddenly goes dead, after everyone collectively exhaled from holding their breath listening to that horror. Jonathan, ever the professional, goes to Sandra's station and pulls up the call log. Nothing. The call came from nowhere. Now, this was before the system was upgraded to all digital, with the automatic transcription in the digital. So the recording system was still magnetic tape. He rewinds the tape, and sure enough, from the point Sandra answered it until the call ended, there was nothing but screaming, with Sandra and Jonathan's voices the only ones legible. Now, an investigation was launched. Diagnostic were run. They called the local phone company and requested call logs, etc. At the time of the call, there was zero service in our area due to the storms. Lightning had struck a main junction and shorted out a good portion of the city's phone service. Diagnostics turned up nothing wrong with the computers, except they were outdated as hell. Now, here's the eerie part. It was at the exact time that call came in. This happened about 30 minutes away. I found another job a few months after that, apparently in the renovations and upgrades to the call center. The tapes that had that recording were damaged beyond salvage. They were in the process of digitizing all those to make them compliant with the Freedom of Information Act requirements. I did some of that work too. I am glad I moved on.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.